This is the Unspoken Podcast, Special Edition, with Tom Albano, Nick Fodera, and Nick Morgasen on the Undetermined Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. It's Tom Albano, along with Nick Fodera, Nick Morgasen, as always, a special hot stove edition of the Unspoken Podcast, and we're joined by Bryan Hoch, a Yankees beat writer for MLB.com. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we have a lot to talk about because some big news going on with the Yankees. The Yankees recently getting Giancarlo Stanton from the Marlins. And it's funny because the Yankees, it seemed like last week when the Giancarlo Stanton stuff first started coming out that the Yankees were like on the far end of things. They were just standing pat and adding small pieces. How did they go from that to adding Giancarlo Stanton?
Yeah, this was not something that the Yankees actually set out to do this offseason. Their priority had been starting pitching. So as recently as about a week ago, this didn't really look like it was going to happen. The Marlins had worked out separate agreements with the Cardinals and the Giants, and it looked like Stanton was going to be headed to one of those teams, but obviously he had a no-trade clause that he could turn down any team, and he had provided the Marlins with a list of teams that he wanted to be traded to, and he was only looking at ready-to-win contenders right now. So he had the Astros, the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. And so he turned down both of those teams, and suddenly that kind of paints the Marlins into a corner here. So the Yankees had been remaining on the outskirts of the Stanton talks. Brian Cashman said he touched base with Miami around the GM meetings in November when all the teams were down here in Orlando, just to kind of see where Miami was going with that. Kept in touch with them. Didn't think that this was going to happen, but as soon as the Cardinals and the Giants were out of the mix, the Yankees got another call from the Marlins, said, hey, let's revisit that. They hammered that out pretty quickly. Hal Steinbrenner authorized picking up $265 million out of the $295 that's due to Stanton, which is no small investment, but the Yankees got their man. That is the modern-day murderer's row right now. You got Stanton and Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez all in the Hardy lineup, and that is bad news for American League pitchers, I would say.
Yeah, that's a lot of power. I guess you're going to have to fix those nets in right field. But do you think Stanton was in the dark while the Marlins were making the deals with the Giants and the Cardinals? Because it seemed like Giancarlo Stanton was pretty upset with how the whole situation went down.
Yeah, my understanding is he was aware of what was going on. He had met with Derek Jeter at some point after the season, and Peter had made it clear that the Marlins were going to be rebuilding, and this was not a team that was going to throw money at the problem. I mean, they had 78 wins last year. They did not feel like they were ready to compete in the National League East. And basically, it was, we're going to rebuild. We can do it with you or without you. And so Stanton said, okay, I'm open to a trade. Here are my teams. And as I mentioned, Astros, Cubs, Dodgers, and Yankees. I think that he was upset when the Marlins then pursued trades with teams that were not on that list. They came to him and told him, look, you've got to, at one point they threatened him and said, you've got to take one of these two or you're going to be a Marlin for life. That wasn't exactly true considering he's got an opt-out clause after 2020, but it was a bluff and an empty bluff. Stanton called him on it, and he wound up at one of the destinations he wanted to go to, which is the New York Yankees.
Now, Bryan, do you think that Stanton is going to be able to fit into this clubhouse? We know they're a tight-knit group, and he's had a bit of a reputation as being a little bit brusque, let's say. So how do you think he'll be able to deal with you guys, with the media?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it fits in because this is a guy who is now expected to win, and that's something he's never encountered in Miami. You know, there was a lot of times where the Marlins were drawing 10,000, 11,000 a night. They never filled the upper deck. And now he's going to be playing for a Yankee team that is not only expected to contend, a lot of people are picking him to win the World Series next year. So I think that the expectations are sky high. New York is obviously a much different baseball market than Miami. In his one turn on the national stage of the All-Star game, Stanton seemed to have some trouble dealing with that spotlight. I remember forget what happened in the home run derby. That doesn't really matter. What I remember, though, is he got eliminated in the first round by Gary Sanchez, and then he left. And so all the Miami media, all the fans who wanted to hear from Stanton, I mean, he was the ambassador of that weekend. They never got to hear what Stanton had to say about the home run derby that night because he just left. And obviously, as we know, Aaron Judge went on to win. So I think that he's going to get a schooling in what the responsibilities are. The media is going to be a much more important part of it. But the most important part for Stanton is that he hits. And that's really what the Yankees care about. They've dealt with big personalities before. You know, the Yankees just finished their long commitment with Alex Rodriguez, and there were a lot of highs and lows with that, too. And I think that the Yankees are equipped to deal with a big personality like Stanton. But if he hits home runs and Stanton and he, Judge, and Sanchez are all hitting the ball the way that I think they will, that'll solve a lot of problems.
And speaking of Stanton upset and dealing with the media, it seems he's back. I want to say, I guess the term is throwing some shade at the Marlins with his first conversations with the New York media, as well as that Instagram post that he put up. How interesting is it to see this throwing of shade?
Well, I think this is what you're going to get out of Giancarlo Stanton. I think that you're going to know what's on his mind, for better or for worse, and I think that's something that New York fans are going to appreciate, I think. I think that when something is on his mind, he's not going to sugarcoat it. You can go to him for the unvarnished opinion, and the name that comes to my mind in recent years with that is Jorge Posada. Derek Jeter was always the polished. He would give you the state of the team. He would tell you, you got to play him one day at a time, feed you some cliches. But if you really wanted to know what the mood of the team was, especially when things were going bad, you went to Jorge Posada's locker. And I feel like Stanton could be that guy for the Yankees.
Talking about other aspects of this deal, Brian, Jacoby Ellsbury's name has come up in this deal on and off. I know the Yankees were trying to get rid of his salary because I know he's under contract for the next 3 years. What does this mean for Jacoby Ellsbury, and how desperate were the Yankees to get rid of Jacoby Ellsbury's salary, and how hard did they try to include him in the deal for Stanton?
Well, my understanding is that the Marlins weren't interested, so that was pretty much a non-starter. They needed to get something back that they can sell to their fan base, and that's what they got with the two prospects and Starlin Castro. And who knows if they actually keep Castro, he may never play a game for the Marlins. They may turn around and flip him for more prospects. But in Ellsbury's case, it is a contract that the Yankees would love to get out from underneath. They're probably going to have to eat a significant portion of it to do so. But it's difficult to come up with a way where he fits into this outfield alignment now. He was already being pushed out even before the Stanton trade, and now he's relegated to possibly a fifth outfielder on that bench. So they've got a glut of outfielders. You wonder, too, how Clint Frazier is going to fit in there. That's another possibility, somebody who might be moved this offseason. But, make no mistake, the Yankees are listening on Jacoby Ellsbury. I just don't think there's a whole lot of people asking about him right now.
Now, when we heard Stanton talk about, during his introductory press conference yesterday, we heard him say that there was a private meeting between Stanton and Jeter. And what do you think went on in that private meeting? Do you think the tone of that meeting was contentious? Because, we know one thing about Derek Jeter from his time in New York. His one opinion is that he hates having opinions. So what do you think might have went on?
I mean, just speculating without having been in that room, obviously, I think that Jeter's a tough negotiator, and I think that he's all business, and I think he drives a hard bargain. He's not accustomed to not winning, no matter what it is. I mean, this is a guy who, in fourth grade, said he was going to play shortstop for the New York Yankees, and he made it come true, and he's going to go down in franchise history as one of the greatest players ever. So I think that Derek Jeter's not accustomed to not getting his way. I remember a few years ago when he was in a contract negotiation with the Yankees, there was a lot of bad blood there. And, they essentially told him, Brian Cashman said that they would prefer to go for another shortstop, but they were going to sign him anyway as sort of a legacy deal, and that wound up being his final Yankee shortstop, Yankees contract. So I think that Jeter, it was probably contentious at times. I think that you had two very strong personalities in that room going head-to-head. But at the end of the day, and this is where the no-trade clause came in so huge for Stanton, it takes the leverage away from the team, and it puts it all back on the player's side. So he was able to turn down those deals to cities where he didn't want to go in St. Louis and San Francisco and hold out and say, you're not going to make me do that. I'm going to go where I want to go, and you're going to make it happen. And they did.
And speaking of Jeter and that no trade clause of Stanton's, there's been a lot of criticism about this trade, a lot of criticism towards Jeter. Do you think he's getting just his fair share, or too much, or not enough, especially considering that Stanton did have the no trade clause for the Giants and Cardinals?
Yeah, it paints the Marlins into a corner there, and I think that Jeter made it very clear there were going to be unpopular decisions when he took over that team. You know, this was not the New York Yankees, a ready-made contender that he was buying. I mean, this is a team laden with debt who has a history of selling off players, and Jeter made it pretty clear that this was an ugly situation he was walking into. They had to clean it up and make it right, but this team, $400 million in the red, the easiest and quickest way to take a bite out of that is to move Stanton's contract. So I felt like that was a must. I thought the second that Jeter's ownership group came in, Stanton's days in Marlins teal or orange or whatever you want to call their colors now, those were limited. I can't tell you that I thought Stanton would be in the Yankee lineup, but I was pretty sure he wouldn't be in the Marlins lineup for 2018.
Talking to Bryan Hoch, Yankees reporter for MLB.com, looking at the situation for the Yankees over the years, they've been criticized from the early 2000s and on about making big signings and trading prospects and doing anything. They're the best team that money can buy. Is this Stanton signing referring to the Yankees as the evil empire coming back? What do you think about the evil empire coming back?
Well, certainly it's a play out of the George Steinbrenner playbook, and this is something that I think Hal's father would have done. In this situation, I think it's worth remembering that the Yankees went in trying to find starting pitching. They're still going to try and find starting pitching, but when those two deals fell through at a reduced cost, and all you got to really do is trade Starlin, Castro, a couple prospects, and eat a lot of money, that is a move that the Yankees can make. And to bring in a player like Stanton, they didn't even necessarily need him. I mean, a power-hitting right fielder, they have one of those already. The American League Rookie of the Year unanimously. So it didn't exactly fill a need for the Yankees, but I think that when you have the opportunity to add a bat like Stanton to your lineup, you do it. And, hey, look, the Yankees are about star power. At the end of the day, it is a business. They need people in the seats at Yankee Stadium. They want people watching on the YES Network. I think that ratings are going to go through the roof. I think that attendance is going to be high this year. And if the team plays the way they should on the field, they should win, too. So it really was a perfect storm for the Yankees. But I think that, back in the day, George would say you have to go out and get every big free agent who's out on the market. You don't hear that about the Yankees right now. This seems to be more of the aberration over the last 10 years or so than the norm. But the Yankees can make big plays when they have to, and they made another one here.
And, Brian, do you think that the Marlins ownership group, meaning the GM Mike Hill and Jeter, saw this move as just a salary dump, part of a mission to rebuild the Marlins? Or do you think there was a fair bit of, I don't want to say vengeance, but bridge burning?
With Stanton, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that they wanted to get the best deal they possibly could, and they sensed that the price. I think that they were probably going to get a better offer from San Francisco or St. Louis just in terms of prospects coming back, but I think that they were really painted in a corner there, and I think that when you look at the bottom line, I mean, this team's bleeding money. The Marlins are. They've been struggling for years, losing money under the old ownership group. Jeter's coming in, and the one thing I know about Derek Jeter, he's not coming in this to lose money. So obviously Bruce Sherman is the majority shareholder, and it's most of his money, and he's not doing that either. I don't think anybody buys a baseball team to lose money. When you're looking at the product on the field is not going to be very good. There's an old saying, Ralph Kiner with the Pirates back in the day. Now I'm going back to the 1940s, but they told him he went in for a raise after leading the National League with home runs, and they said, we could have finished last without you. And so I think that Stanton, in that case, there's a parallel there. Yeah, he hit all those home runs, but where did it get the Marlins? And they weren't going to be much better in 2018. So I think you make the best deal you can for the future and you move on.
So looking at the Yankees situation, they actually pulled a few deals in the past couple of days besides the Stanton deal. They pulled the trigger on Chase Headley and his money situation. Was that purely a salary dump, or are they looking to plug in the young players into their situation?
I have to apologize. I am at Disney World, as you know, for the winter meetings, and the Epcot fireworks show has started. So if you hear something in the background, that's what it is. But the answer about the moving Chase Headley, I think it is a precursor to another move to come. It's something that will clear up salary cap space for the Yankees. Hal Steinbrenner has talked a lot about wanting to be under 197 for next year, which will reset their tax rate. And this will give them about $30 million to play with. So they can go out, they can upgrade the infield, they can go get the starting pitcher or starting pitchers that they want to get. And so this is really clearing salary space for something yet to come.
Now, with Headley and Castro gone as of today, how do you think the Yankees are going to fill the holes in the infield? Do they do it from within or from without?
I'd be surprised if both get filled from within. I think that they can certainly entertain the idea of Miguel Andujar at third base. I think that you could get by for a month or so with Ronald Torreyes at second base. He did a great job filling in for Didi Gregorius. Didi missed all of April last year pretty much. I think that you could plug those guys in, but I would expect them to go out. I think you go out and get a third baseman, and I know that they've been in contact with Todd Frazier. I'm not sure if he would take a one-year deal to come back. My inclination is that no, he would not. But I think they're going to go out and gauge the trade market. I could see them going with Reyes at second base, and because you've got Gleyber Torres waiting in the wings, and he is going to be part of your infield in the future. So I think that maybe you start the season with Reyes, you hand it over to Torres at some point, but I think you got to fill in a little bit of third base if you're not convinced that Miguel Andujar is ready. And judging by the way that Joe Girardi was reluctant to put him in the lineup last year, it seems like they weren't quite sold, especially on his defense.
So today we've been hearing some rumblings that we're talking about filling up the holes in the infield, that the Yankees might be interested in Manny Machado.
Well, I'm sure they'd be interested, and I'm sure they'll be even more interested in a year, but I really have serious doubts that the Orioles want to trade him within the division and have to look at Machado 19 times next year, especially the way Aaron Judge crushed Baltimore pitching. And look, I think that Yankee fans can dream about Machado and pinstripes, and I think it might happen, but I just don't think it's going to happen in 2018. I think if it does, we'll all be talking about it at the winter meetings next year in Las Vegas.
Man, that stinks. We thought you could have broken some news for us on the podcast.
But looking at other situations, we're not talking a lot about Aaron Boone. He was kind of the hot topic at the beginning of this offseason. We know Joe Girardi was out. That was kind of a tough situation. They were looking to bring in someone who was a little more player-friendly, and they finally got down to Aaron Boone. How do you think Aaron Boone's going to work with someone like Gary Sanchez, which it seemed like he didn't really have a good situation with Joe Girardi?
Yeah, I thought there was some friction between Girardi and Sanchez. I thought that was evident on a couple occasions. So that is definitely a priority for Boone. He said that at the press conference when they introduced him at Yankee Stadium last week. He said he's been texting with Sanchez. They're actually going to meet up at some point this weekend in New York. I don't know what they're going to do, hang out, get a cup of coffee, whatever it is, basically a getting to know you type deal. But Gary Sanchez is so important to this Yankees team, not just for his bat, but behind the plate, handling a pitching staff. He is so key to the Yankees' chances in 2018. They really need to get everything they can out of Gary Sanchez. They have. I mean, this is a guy who hit 33 home runs last year and missed a month. So I don't need to remind you guys about what he did at the tail end of 2016. So this is a guy that is definitely a building block. He is going to be key to Aaron Boone's success as a manager. So I think that having a good relationship with Sanchez, he's correct. It is a priority for him, and it's something he's obviously going to spend some time on here.
All right. So if we do you see the Yankees bringing back CC Sabathia in any capacity? Because we know that they're trying their best to beef up their pitching staff any way they can. So do you see that happening?
I do. I thought it was going to happen at the end of last season. I remember when CC was standing in the clubhouse in Houston after Game 7 of the ALCS, and he said, "This is the only place I want to be. This is where I want to be next year. I want to see this through." And from that minute on, I've been thinking that Sabathia will be back next season. I think it makes too much sense not to happen. He's got a house in New Jersey, very close to Yankee Stadium. His kids are here. His family's here. He loves being a Yankee. He gets it. He gets the market. And he pitched really well last year, too. So I know that there's some concerns. We're bringing back a 37-year-old guy. Obviously, he is big body, big frame, bad knees, all that. But he's getting the job done. I think you can easily sell me on the idea of bringing CC Sabathia back for at least 1 year, maybe one with a club option for the next season. But he's a big part of that team. He's a leader of that pitching staff in that clubhouse, and I think they'd be a lot better with him than without him.
Speaking of other people that the Yankees might be trying to pursue, the Yankees are in rumors trying to pursue Gerrit Cole. Is a deal like that feasible for the Yankees now that they have the money? Would they even be willing to trade prospects? Because for Gerrit Cole, probably going to want some top-level or mid-top level prospects.
Yeah, and I think that Clint Frazier would have to be a part of any deal, and teams know that. Teams know that he's blocked in New York now, and this is a guy who was the centerpiece of the Andrew Miller trade a couple years ago. So obviously the sky is the limit for him. He's got legendary bat speed. We've seen a little bit of it at the big league level. I think that this is a very valuable chip for the Yankees, especially if they're going to consider Gleyber Torres off limits, as they should. If you're going to ask for one of the Yankees' top guys, I think you're going to ask for Clint Frazier, and I would have to think that in any major deal, teams are going to ask for him. So I think at some point you rob Peter to pay Paul, but if the Yankees want starting pitching, as they do, Gerrit Cole would be a definite place to start. This is a guy that the Yankees drafted and were unable to sign back in 2008. So they've had eyes on him for a long time. He grew up a Yankee fan. I think he'd be a good fit. But I think we're a long way from that. We got to still hammer that agreement, but it's not going to come cheap. Teams know what the Yankees have, especially in their farm system now, and there's a lot of talent there that they can ask for, and they're going to ask for it.
Talking to Bryan Hoch of MLB.com, Yankee reporter. Bryan, what do you see as the final stepping stones of the winter meetings for the Yankees? What do you think they need to accomplish before these meetings are over?
They don't necessarily have to cross the finish line on anything before Thursday afternoon, but I think what you're seeing here is a lot of the groundwork. They've already made the Stanton trade. They've traded Chase Headley. Those are two pretty big moves for the offseason, for the winter meetings here. So they're stealing all the headlines here in Orlando. I don't necessarily think they have to do anything, but they're definitely setting the groundwork for what's to come, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if something materializes here over the next week or two that results in them getting a starting pitcher, probably CC Sabathia, and probably upgrading the infield too. And third baseman yet to be named on that deal, but that's pretty much where I see them going here. I think the starting pitching and another corner and a corner infielder is probably where they're going to go.
Now, as a corollary to what Nick said, I must ask, with all that we've seen the Yankees pull off just within the last 72 hours, is it feasible to keep expecting the unexpected out of this team?
I think you have to. You remember when Aaron Boone took the manager's job, he didn't have Stanton. Chase Headley was his third baseman. Starlin Castro was his second baseman. They were ready to go into 2018 with that. So I think Brian Cashman's making some noise here. He's proving that he's able to sneak up on some people and change the course of the winter meetings. And so far, he's made all the noise. And so I think that, you have to expect the unexpected with this team. I don't think many of us would have predicted they were going to have Stanton in their lineup about a month or two ago. So, who knows where they go from here.
So we've got a lot of stuff going on at the MLB winter meetings. I guess it is true. Expect the unexpected with all that's going on, especially with the Yankees. Bryan, hopefully the winter meetings aren't too much work for you right now. And hopefully the Epcot fireworks in the background weren't too much of a distraction for you.
I think they're done now, but I think they're going to go again at midnight. So if you want to call me back, we can listen to them again together.
Oh, that would be perfect. I mean, we already got plenty of fireworks from the Yankees. We can get extra fireworks instead. But Bryan Hoch, MLB.com Yankee reporter. Thanks for joining us on the Unspoken podcast.
Thank you so much, Brian.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for us. I think we got a lot of information from Mr. Hoch about all that the Yankees are doing.
I mean, the amount of stuff that we're finding out, and Bryan Hoch, who I really enjoy, I've done interviews with him in the past. He is one of the best of the best as Yankee reporters. So we found out things that probably we wouldn't hear from other people. So,
and it is really a blessing in disguise to have. Well, not in disguise. It is a blessing to actually have him here because he's on the ground. His ear is actually planted on terra firma to tell us what's going on, and it's all for your benefit, loyal listeners.
Guys, as I said, a lot of stuff going on with the MLB winter meetings. It's going to be one heck of an off season. That's going to do it for us here. Go follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Periscope at the UDUP. Go follow the Undetermined Podcast Network itself at the UD Network on Facebook and Twitter. And that's going to do it for us. So, on Tom Albano and for Nick Fodera and Nick Morgasen, we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Unspoken Podcast, part of the Undetermined Podcast Network. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.